So Star Wars The Last Jedi came out just a few days ago, and right out of the gate, this is one of the most divisive films of the year. It's one that everyone rushed out to go see, and a bunch of us went, I gotta stop and think about that one a little bit. I'm not quite sure how I feel about this. Other people immediately went, I hate this. I do not like what they did with Luke Skywalker. I do not like the direction that they took the story and just how down it was, and the humor in it didn't feel right. And other people were like, I love this one. This is one of the best Star Wars movies we've had yet.
So Last Jedi is phenomenal. Go see it.
Star Wars, I left the theater with so many different mixed feelings.
Overall, I still enjoyed the movie and had a good time.
I really wanted to give the movie 4 stars, but I only liked about half of the movie.
The Last Jedi was a really great film.
The Last Jedi just got out of the theater, and I have to say I've never been so conflicted in a theater experience.
I don't like it as much as The Force Awakens. Might not even like it as much as Rogue One, which I wasn't really that favorable on.
You want to go see The Last Jedi?
So with all that, immediately I was like, it's Star Wars, I'm going to do spoiler talk anyway. But this movie, because of the different responses, a generic review of it just was not going to cut it. So I decided I was going to do a spoiler talk. And if you're kind of newer to my channel and you've seen a lot of my more recent content, it moves pretty quickly, cut pretty tight to be efficient in what I'm talking about. This one's going to be a lot more podcast style. I'm going to have long takes where I talk and give my full thoughts, a little bit more deeper analysis, and obviously, as this title says, packed with spoilers. If you have not watched The Last Jedi yet, don't watch this one. I do not want you to know the information in this video before we get started. And also, as I go through this, I'm going to be showing clips from some other people, some of the viewers, commenter type people, up on the screen so I can interact back and forth with some different ideas and kind of present some different perspectives on it. All that's being done with the Stardust app. It's totally free. You can download it for free out of the Apple or Android store. No cost, no ads, any of that stuff. It's just an easy way for you to record reactions to TV shows and movies without needing any sort of special technology or anything like that. Just a smartphone and this totally free app, and that's kind of how they're getting their videos to me. And if you want to learn more about that, I'll tell you at the very end of the video. With all that said, let's get started talking about this movie. And as I said, for me, I didn't give it a score when I started out in my initial review for the first time ever. I've never done that before, but I watched it and went, oh, I gotta let this sink in. And I wasn't the only one. A ton of people had that exact same response to it. And here's what I can say. If you watch my previous review, I knew I was pretty critical of a lot of things. And I'll say, all of my previous criticisms of it, issues I had with it, stand by every single one of them. There was not a single one of my criticisms that I watched it the second time and I went, no, that was okay. No, I was wrong. Every single one of them, I think I stand by all of them. But I enjoyed it more. It was a more enjoyable film when I had right expectations, kind of went into it. And some of the things I even had issues with, it's not that they weren't issues, but there was some setup that I could see as the movie was going along. There was more payoff than I realized. And so when I took the movie for what it was, I could enjoy it more while at the same time being like, there were some story issues in here. But it wasn't just me that said this is a movie that worked better the second time. Some other people said the exact same thing.
Star Wars The Last Jedi, I went again to see it last night, and I actually had a little more fun with this movie. I think it's a little better than I originally thought about it. The more I think about it, the more I enjoy it as well.
Walking home after seeing Star Wars for the second time, this movie was 10 times better the second time.
After seeing it a second time, you'll love it so much more. There's so much new information you'll gain in that second rewatch.
So in and of itself, I think that's very cool when a movie just works in such a way that people watch it, and even if they go, I don't think I like that, they go, I want to see that again. And I want to talk through the stuff about it. It's not just, like with Transformers the last night, I watched it, I was like, this is crap. I never thought about it, other than did a review about it, didn't think about it for 6 months, and then I started going, oh, what are my worst movies of the year? Oh, Transformers last night. But it didn't stick with you. It's just like, blah, this thing that was fun to make fun of for a couple days, and then it was gone. Whereas with this one, people are seeing it and they want to talk about it. They want to think about it. They want to rewatch it. Whether they loved it, they want to rewatch it. If they hate it, they want to rewatch it, just to be able to process everything that happened and get a perspective on it and just affirm their hatred or affirm their love for it. So that's very interesting. So we're going to start off, and I'll give you kind of the outline. I'm going to talk about the story and themes in general, kind of the big picture stuff about the movie. Then I'm going to talk about the specific plot lines, because I don't want to walk through the story of the movie, kind of pick each plot line and kind of walk through how it plays out. So the resistance and the rebellion stuff with Leia, Finn's animal cruelty adventure, then Luke and Rey, and then we'll talk about Snoke, and then the third act. That's kind of the flow that we're going to do with all of this. With that said, we'll dive in with the story and themes in general. And in big picture speaking, I really like what they did with the plot, because at its core, it's a very simple, straightforward plot. The rebellion has been found by the First Order, and they need to get away. So it's a simple plot line that can easily pick up from where the last film was at. In which case, when you think about it, these two movies, like, does 2 weeks pass in the span of these two movies? Does a week, 1 week pass? Like, was 1 week ago Rey on Jakku? Like, it's not really clear, but with the way it kind of treats space travel and everything, it seems like not a lot of time has passed in the span of these movies, but very simple, straightforward. And so it gives a sense of urgency throughout and a clear objective. And you can start with, we want to get as many people over there as possible, which creates a very nice setup for the movie to just feel like the brutality of every time a ship blows up. You're going, okay, we wanted to get all these people, and now it's slightly fewer people that are going to make it. And that just gets, every time a ship blows up, a ship crashes, they fail at something, you just feel the stakes of it. And that's why the movie has just like this great tension throughout it, because they picked a premise for the story that's pretty straightforward and measurable. Did they get, or how many people got there, and how many people make it out at the end? And because we started with 400 people, or no, even at the 400 was a limited number, it was already a reduced number. So you start off with like 500 people, and then you get down to 400 people, and by the end of the movie, it's like 30 people, in which case you feel that throughout the whole movie. You're just watching the good guys lose. And they create a scenario where you feel that throughout the movie. So clear objectives, clear plot points in all of it. That's great. And tied to this movie that you're just seeing failure throughout it has very clear themes in it. So some of them are clearly stated, where Yoda says in kind of his speech, the greatest teacher is failure. This is a movie where everybody's failing. Everyone is failing at things from beginning to end. The bad guys are failing at things, and the good guys are failing at things. And you just see this theme played out in people learning lessons through their failures. So that's when a movie does that, and you can clearly articulate it, and you can go, oh, failure's kind of a major theme here. Snoke failed pretty obviously. You see Rey failing and doing things like Luke says, this isn't going to go the way you think. Like, don't do this. And she goes, and it has consequences that she walks into a trap. Poe Dameron fails a lot in this, and you can see them play out so nicely. Characters have clear story arcs. The lessons that they're learning, the journey that they're on, the path that they're taking, and it's all very clearly defined. And so you can to have emotional payoff for all the characters throughout the movie. And you just kind of pick all of them, where you've got, at the beginning of it, you have Finn, this misguided person, because throughout both of these movies, is almost going to bail on this whole deal just because he wants to save his friend, and he's not thinking about everyone else. And then by the end of it, he's thinking about saving his friend, but it's just this hate-based thing, and someone comes in and helps him understand, no, like, you need to know what you're for, not just what you're against. This whole time, you're against so many things, but you're forgetting the big picture of what you're for. We're learning lessons. Luke is learning lessons, and that his failure can't just crush him. And so clear character arcs throughout all of them. The script, and I'm going down my points. If I start doing numbers with my hand, it's because I've got numbers in front of me. The script sets things up. Like, it's very nicely crafted, and especially on second viewing, this is why the second viewing was so important, is that you can catch things a lot better. That, like, early on in the movie, when they're doing the Rey and Kylo Ren force bridging thing, Kylo Ren says in there, how are you doing this? You must not be doing this, because if you were doing this, it would kill you. You couldn't project like this. And it puts a line in there that sets up what happens with Luke. So if you watch it the first time, you don't pay attention to that line. Oh, of course Rey's not powerful. It's just kind of a throwaway line. Then you get to the end of the movie and you're like, why did Luke just die? Like, what is happening here? I can kind of fill some gaps in. Well, maybe what happened, but it's not really set up in the movie. And then you go, oh, second viewing, that's very clearly set up. They put the pieces in place to establish that he hasn't been using the Force, and that this can kill you if you do this sort of long distance type thing. And so it's set up. And the whole movie has these little moments like that, where there's just a little line that sets up what's coming in the future, but it's not something that you're watching the movie and you can see the screenwriting tricks that's going on where, here in some movies, they'll have like a character 40% of the way through the movie, someone teaches them a trick like, oh, if you want to know how to like trip a guy, you do, and they train them on some trick. And so later in the movie, a guy is holding this person hostage and you go, oh, they're going to do the trick. None of it is like that. None of the setups are so obvious or just, that you can predict what it's going to do. No, it's a conversation that makes total sense in the context that Kylo would say that and be confused and would verbalize something like that. But it gives us information that we need and the story needs to be consistent. That's good screenwriting. As I mentioned earlier, the movie also has great stakes and consequences. Like it's set up in such a way that even though it's not like gigantic planets exploding, we're talking about the resistance that's there to stop planets from being destroyed, that's there to stop the First Order from taking over. And the consequences are just dire from what happens. And each thing that happens, it's not like a planet blowing up. None of it just seems dramatic in the moment. It's like the beginning of the movie, they have a battle and they win the battle. They blow up the dreadnought. But you realize in the process, wait, they just took a lot of hits. Actually, as I was watching it, my wife goes, they're losing a lot of guys. This is not good. And like, yeah, that's right. And that's, once again, good storytelling and proper stakes when it's set up in such a way that you're looking at it going, hey, they won. Wait, at what cost? How many more of these do they have? And then as the movie progresses, you go, wait, they just lost what they needed to potentially win. And the whole movie kind of keeps playing out like that. And the consequences of Poe's little, like, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but Poe's little, like, hey, why don't we go to the casinos and have Finn grab somebody and come back? The consequences of him doing that and going rogue and not listening to Princess Leia or General Leia is what she tried to teach him at the beginning has big consequences. All right, final big picture type thing I'll talk about is the humor. And it's not a story one. I was generally talking about story and theme type stuff. But in the humor of it, in general, I don't think it worked. I thought it was really out of place. And it was a lot of the same type of humor, the J.J. Abrams type humor that you saw in The Force Awakens as well as you saw in his Star Trek movies. And it just felt a little bit more forced here. And if that's J.J. Abrams' actual sense of humor, it kind of flowed naturally out of him. Whereas here it feels like Rian Johnson trying to do J.J. Abrams' humor and it feeling kind of awkward and feeling a little bit more forced when you got these moments like Finn's walking around in a bubble suit that's shooting water. It's a silly image, and so you get a laugh out of people, but it doesn't feel quite right. And there's moments in it where porgs are like slapping their faces into glass and stuff. It just felt so kind of cartoonish. And there were a lot of times where it felt the jokes felt like they broke important tension. Like there's scenes that needed to have a little bit more weight to them. They turned so jokey, like right out of the gate. They're trying to build the dire sense that the First Order is coming in on the Resistance. They're in trouble. And it kind of plays out this kind of 3 different levels of this Poe joking around with Hux gag that it felt off. Like it didn't feel as natural as it did in the previous movie when they had a moment like that. Because it was face to face where it was like a phone call. It was like, this feels a little bit too much like you're trying to make it work. And I heard some of the jokes did work, though there were certainly some good laughs in it at times, but the humor in general had pretty mixed reaction. I heard several different people say some negative things about it.
It's kind of funny. Somebody said outside of the theater that the humor was kind of marvelly, so you may have to be prepared to deal with that. But
I love the scene where Rey is like trying to use the Force and she sticks her hand out and she thinks she's getting the Force, but it's just Luke Skywalker with like the leaf. And
I feel like a lot of the humor was put in there just to try to make it funny. It just felt off.
So I definitely liked the gag with Luke and Rey. I thought that was a fun one and one that felt earned and it felt right because it was kind of a guy messing with someone that was a little bit cynical and would do something like that. And it was a kind of a teacher type thing. And you could see if this is a guy whose teacher was Yoda and you could see Yoda doing stuff like that. But a lot of the other ones just did feel kind of off. And someone, like, I heard several people kind of make this MCU comparison. And I didn't immediately think MCU type jokes, but the nature of MCU humor largely and the humor in this, it's just kind of broad kind of jokes that are just kind of break the tension of the moment. So what's a funny image in the middle of this tense situation? What's a silly thing that could happen? And that's kind of MCU type humor. So I definitely see the connection. And I don't think it flowed smoothly here here as it has in the previous ones, or as it flowed in the MCU. And in particular, in a movie like this that has such kind of heavy consequences around it, it just felt off. It felt very weird to me at times, the way some of this stuff played out. From there, let's move on to the full Resistance Rebellion plotline and kind of how some of that plays out. So, key idea is that Resistance is trying to get from here to there to get a message out and hopefully to spark hope. That's another one of these themes throughout the movie, is what sparks hope in people. What will spark hope that the First Order won't rule? And that's in the opening crawl, and that runs all the way through to the final image of the movie as that spark goes to some children and you're going, oh, the next generation is where the hope is, which is making me think, I'm wondering if there's going to be like a 10-year gap going into the next movie. I'm wondering if they might even do something like that. These two are really close, and that one might be a really big jump. Just a thought I have, because they were focusing on kids so much, and the sort of idea that maybe a bunch of new Force users are going to pop up. But anyway, back to the rebellion. Sorry about that. But kicking it off, the main plot line felt a little bit like they wanted to borrow from Empire Strikes Back without doing what they did with The Force Awakens. So The Force Awakens takes the template of A New Hope, and there's nobody on a farm planet discovers there is somebody, has to go to a Death Star with a aging person with knowledge of this thing that they've discovered about themselves. And then, obviously the comparisons everybody knows about the ways in which it was a rehash of A New Hope. Everyone knows that. This one, I felt it was all still there. Not as overtly, but like from the opening crawl, the First Order has discovered the Resistance base. Like that's an opening crawl. And I read that and I was like, ooh, that's the beginning of The Empire Strikes Back. And that's the plot of The Empire Strikes Back, that people are on the run from the Empire who's found them. And that's what you see here. And so not as overt, but certainly it's doing the same sort of thing. So it starts to play out, and early on we get the sequence where, not the first space battle, but the second one where Akbar gets killed, Princess Leia gets blown out into space. I thought that was it was a weird one. It's like they wanted to give Princess Leia a Force moment, but they didn't have a good reason in the plot. And they needed something in the plot to be able to take Leia out, and so that there was someone in charge that would do what Leia would do, but without knowing how to communicate to Poe. And so then they come up with Leia's floating in space and uses the Force to fly back in. And it set weird with me, and as I was watching with my wife, she was really like, what? Are you serious? Are you kidding me? She did not care for the way that played out at all. So she's put in a coma over that sequence. I didn't think was great. And Laura Dern, Vice Admiral, I believe, Holdo. She was from the Princess Leia book. If you don't know that, she was in the Princess Leia book as a high school friend of Leia. So they go all the way back to their high school days actually pre-rebellion. They were friends, or pre-rebellion for Princess Leia. They were friends. If you didn't know that. So it's a kind of a nice payoff from that book. And some of the, it works without needing to read the book, but it gives that extra meat to it if you know that. So she's put in charge, and she's not really communicating with Poe what she's going to do. So Poe concocts his plan, and we'll talk about the full nature of it. But so then sends Finn off. Finn collects a shady scoundrel fellow to help him lock in. They fail at their mission. Scoundrel guy rats them out. So then when it comes time for Admiral Holdo's plan to go down, Poe actually full-on mutinies, takes her out, and he tells her tells her his plan, and she doesn't go for it. She's like, no, we're not going to do that. So he mutinies. So when all this stuff ends up going down, Princess Leia recaptures the ship, and the transports are out. Our Benicio del Toro character rats them out, and so they start getting taken out. And this is happening because of Poe's decision. So this is a payoff of the earlier ideas of you can't just go crazy, you can't just kind of shoot from the hip and be this rogue cowboy. There's consequences to him doing that. Here's where I have some problems with this main plot line. Like, in theory, it's really good drama. In theory. Because someone does what they think is right because they don't have some information, and they fight, and we're rooting for them. based off, he has the same information we have. We're rooting, and all the way up until they fail at it, we're rooting for him. And then we're given more information, and we realize, oh no, everything that just happened was working against what should have been happening. And so then, because of that, we get this new information. We go, oh no, Holdo's not so bad. Oh, she's a good guy. And we immediately transition to being on her side. And there's a great drama in that kind of moves you. Here's the problem I had with it. I don't think the movie convinced me why Holdo didn't tell Poe what she was doing. First go round, I'm tracking with you. He's in trouble, just got demoted. He's this wild cowboy in space. He doesn't need to know everything. But then he enacts this whole plan, and he keeps coming back like, what's your plan? What's your plan? And they're about to leave the ship. They're within hours of doing this, and she's still not telling anyone what's going on. So he comes back after Finn's already done all his stuff and tells her, I'm about to have my people go over there and they're going to do this. And she's like, what? You're going to have a former stormtrooper and random person. And what she doesn't say is, you got to understand, there's a base right there that we can get to. I'm going to use this ship as a distraction because they're not searching for all this other stuff. So they're not going to notice that we just sent everybody off. That's the plan. To get everyone lost so we can get over there and send the message. So if you do what you're doing, it puts it in danger because it changes the dynamics of everything. Because when Poe learns about what's going on, he goes, oh, and he backs off. And so when we're at this point in time where Holdo knows Poe is about to just shake the whole thing up and put everything in danger, and that's what happens, she doesn't tell him. And that to me, I go, ooh, that's a pretty big gap in this movie, because in order for the plot to work, you have to have big miscommunications and lack of communication that don't fully make sense. There's a gap there that I, like, for me, I can't get over. I just see that as a problem. So if you guys are tracking with me with this whole video, tell me in the comment section your thoughts on that. And is there something I'm missing as to why Holdo would, like, for so long not tell this guy the plan when she knows he's about to do something bonkers? Like, even when he mutinies, she doesn't go, Poe, this is what I'm doing. Please don't do this. You're going to screw it up. I'm not trying to run. I'm not trying to flee. There's a strategy to this. She doesn't do that. So they start sending the ships out. Holdo stays behind. Ships are getting blown to pieces. And there's about 10 minutes of ships getting blown up. And I was trying to do the math on it, and it seemed like all these ships should have been blown away at the rate at which it, like, every time it shows them, it shows like 2 of them getting blown away. Then it cuts away for them a few minutes, cuts back, 2 get blown away again. And it didn't give a good reason why they weren't all blown away. But anyway, so it's looking bad. So then Holdo goes, I've got a plan. And so she turns the ship around and hyperspaces into it. It hits them. And this is another one where I went, all right, that's a cool moment. But it feels a little bit like they needed to play that out differently. Like, either Dreadnought just starts like bombarding these transport ships and they're just like blowing up left and right. She goes, oh crap, and just turns around and immediately jumps it. Or there had to be some reason why she doesn't take so long to jump, because she's gonna die. It's not like she has to, like, she's planning on dying the whole time. So she could have was my first thought. Like, can't she use her ship as, like, move it in the way? Can't she fly at him? Isn't there several things that she could do? And that's what plays out. And so why did she wait so long? It seems like they could have worked that a little bit differently to make that plot work better and have a little bit more meat to it and save 25 ships in the process. So that's kind of and I'll get into obviously everything kind of converges at the end. So I'll talk about the third act kind of all together when we get down to our Rebel base. That was kind of my take on it. So in general, I really like the idea of this plot line. But I think the nature of the plot line, some of the execution I don't think worked quite right, and we'll get into the Finn plot line in just a little bit, and that's where I think it really struggled. But also one of the problems with the plot line is the Star Wars movies are known for their vibrant environments, and Lucas was famous for saying, I want to have 3 different environments for every single movie. So you watch Empire Strikes Back, and you're on a snow planet, a swamp, and then in the clouds, like 3 totally different color schemes, 3 totally different types of environments. And so you feel the sense of movement throughout the movie. And throughout that, you've also got all sorts of space in there. Well, this movie, we're on space. And so the movie kept cutting back to an island, and it would do a shot of an island, and then we would cut back to space, and you'd have the same shot of the ship's flying along and being bombarded from a distance. It was slight changes each time, like, oh, this time the ship ran out of fuel. But so it made the movie lose a little bit of the sense of we're moving forward, and it kind of gave the movie a bit of an odd feel for me that it didn't feel like we were really going on this big adventure. And you can kind of look at this movie and be like, hey, well, we have our island, our casino, and then our salt planet. But it doesn't, the way it played out, it didn't really feel like that because the way we spent time in space. So I had some issues with it. I wasn't alone. My buddy Tyler Tompkins, he puts his thoughts up on Stardust. This is what he had to say about it.
I really wanted to give the movie 4 stars, but I only liked about half of the movie because the way I break up Star Wars The Last Jedi is that you have all the stuff with Rey, Kylo, and Luke, which is all really cool. Those are really all of the cool scenes. But then you have all of the stuff with Poe, Leia, Finn, and Rose, which is just not good. It's actually pretty awful compared to all the stuff that's going on with Rey and Luke. Mark Hamill's fantastic as Luke. I just wish that they wouldn't have made some decisions that they made in this movie.
And I think I would very much agree with that just I was having a lot more fun with Mark and Rey or Luke and Rey, and that connecting with that a lot more than what the Resistance one, unfortunately. All right, from there, let's move on to Finn's animal cruelty adventure. So the movie, I felt this is the part that I thought was kind of indefensible, this side of it, and it set some important things up. It was important for the plot in that it screws up the bigger scheme, but it felt underdeveloped. I didn't like the Rose character. I didn't really at all. I didn't care for her. It's not like, oh, another fun character. It was like, okay, she's passable. Finn needs someone to go along with him. So here, let's give him another girl to ride along with him. And so it didn't feel quite right. It seemed strange they sent just the two of them. Just a bunch of things about it just seemed odd. And they go, even the nature of, they figure out that they're just sitting there arresting him, or she's just tased him, and then they for some reason figure out the tracking. Why did they figure that out when no one else could? And how did they know so much information? They didn't feel like that fit together. And then they leave the ship and go to a different planet off somewhere. That just felt to me like, what? The urgency of people are being tracked like this throughout the 2/3 of the movie. And then, but hey, people can just fly off and come back and go to other planets, and we can bring new people into it. Maybe Maz Kanata can show up. All that stuff. I was like, it just feels weird. It's breaking the tension of the urgency and imminence of this kind of pursuit thing that's going on. And the dynamic tension of this is that it's so close. But hey, ships can just kind of come and go, and we can bring people in. And just the time frame of it. We've got 18 hours, and you have to go to another planet, pick somebody up, and fly back. I didn't realize space travel. Okay, it just seems like that things wouldn't be that close. And likewise, when Rey comes back at the end at just the right time from this far off distant place, and she makes it in time. So it just felt off to me and all that. They get to the planet, and it's the most dull planet in the Star Wars universe. At least interesting, because it's Earth with aliens on it. They have yachts that look like yachts, except they can float. A bunch of people in casinos that look like our casinos, playing games that look like our games, people in suits that look like our suits. And there's obviously aliens and all this, but it was the most Earth-looking thing that we've seen in anything in Star Wars, which struck me as very odd. And then the outside game is just horse jockeys on horses, horse racing, except they're not horses. So all of it was just, it seemed like it was an afterthought or something, and for some reason they didn't come up to put the imagination that always goes into Star Wars to build this world. They didn't do that with this planet. And it felt like the movie didn't have any action in the whole middle of it. So then they squeeze in this chase sequence where they escape on the creatures and running through cities, and it felt wrong. The special effects didn't look great. The whole thing just seemed off to me. Then they pick up Benicio del Toro. I liked him. I didn't have strong thoughts on him, but I liked him. And fly back to our ship, and they get onto Evil's ship to take out the tracking device, and I think it picks up. At that point in time, I'm for the most part okay with this. And the fact that they get captured and the way that all plays out, I was like, this actually is tension. You're feeling it as it goes along and as it's running with the Poe Dameron one and everything, because of the reason that I mentioned of people are dying, people are getting blown away, people are getting caught. It happens in a way that just you feel the tension of all of it. And then Captain Phasma shows up. And it's like they doubled. It's like they just repeated the same mistake from the last movie. They tried to correct the mistake by doing the same thing exactly. Like, oh crap, we really didn't give Captain Phasma a good death. People were expecting more from Captain Phasma, so we'll have Captain Phasma come back, be all tough guy or tough girl, beat up Finn again, and then die immediately. What? Just like this totally pathetic kind of death where it's, beats up Finn, knocks him over, pew, arrogance. And then Finn goes, chops her on the head. Just felt like, I can't fathom the idea that they did the same thing again. They just wasted the opportunity. And like, what? How do you not know that you need... We want more from Phasma. We build Phasma throughout the whole movie. Like have Phasma just destroying people left and right. And then the ship blows up if you have to kill Phasma. But I don't know why we need to kill Phasma. Sorry, I'm rubbing my nose. Whenever I do long videos, my nose gets bonkers on me. I just don't understand how you make the same mistake and have... I just don't get it. That's the one that... Those are the types of ones where people are like, it's the best Star Wars movie. I go, yeah, but like the Phasma mistake, just it's such a dumb mistake to make. So I'm not the only one. A couple people mentioned that in their reactions.
There were a few flaws that weighed the movie down a bit, like Phasma and Snoke dying without doing much. But other than that, it was still a really great film, and I enjoyed it.
Next up, talk about Luke and Rey training. So this is probably easily the most interesting part of the movie and most controversial part of the movie, because if you want Luke to be a hero and he's this cranky old man that's made mistakes and looking back on the Jedi and cynical towards the past and frustrated and disenfranchised in both verbally as well as in his mind as well as in his actions, trying to deconstruct the Jedi, that might not be what a lot of people want their Luke to be doing. I think with the way it fully plays out, I think they pulled it off. I think they did some good stuff with it, because even within his deconstruction of the Jedi is not a deconstruction of heroes. It's not a deconstruction of the light. He even says in there, like, it's pure arrogance to think that disbanding the Jedi is getting rid of the light. Key point, that there's extreme arrogance to think that the Jedi have a monopoly on this part of the Force. No, that's just our little segment of it. And likewise, bringing up key points that many of us have thought, because of the prequels, are the Jedi so great? Like, how did all that stuff go down in the prequels if they're so amazing? Well, there's some arrogance in that, and calling that out very much builds up the mythology in a way that I think really matters to the Star Wars universe. At the same time, do I want to see Luke doing it? I'm not fully sure. I want to see my Luke as a hero. That's kind of what I want. So he kind of gets that and kind of doesn't. So we get some training in there. There's some jokes on there. Some of the better J.J. Abrams type jokes on there with the caretakers of the place work pretty nicely. I think with salty, cranky old man Luke, I think my biggest problem with it is that there's for lack of a better word, dickishness to him towards Rey that I don't think fully fits. In that she shows up, has his lightsaber, hey, your sister sent me, things are looking bad, your best friend died, the guy that you were training killed your best friend, it happens to be his dad. And so the way that plays out, and Luke's doesn't, it like you can see a sadness in him, but then he has like this bitingness towards Rey that I don't think fits, that felt out of place, because he should be brokenhearted. It's not that he should leave. It's not that he should want to train her. That's all fine. But the specific way he's treating her and this sort of like throw the lightsaber behind him just feels off. It doesn't like, you don't watch that and go, it felt like Rian Johnson was trying to come up with what's the most unexpected thing that could happen right here. What could happen right now that'll just throw everybody off? Because obviously Force Awakens ends with this handing out of the lightsaber. So, what's Luke going to do? And so that, I mean, as a method to play off audience expectations and knowing what was the discussion in fan world and the image that's in our head and that's been in memes and all that fun stuff, to have him go, certainly plays off our expectations wonderfully. Does it fully make sense, though? I don't think it does. I don't think Luke doing that makes as much sense as you would think. Because, I mean, why would Luke become a jerk to a stranger who's not battling? I mean, why would... Again, that's where it doesn't quite add up to me. So those are some thoughts on that. So other ones in there, Yoda shows up. I heard on the internet and some other people saying that they like the return to the puppet. And so I guess the suggesting me there's an actual Yoda puppet in this one. When Yoda first shows up and has thick blue on him, those first few shots I thought looked horrible. I just thought it looked like the worst CGI Yoda we've seen yet. And I don't know if that's because it was a puppet that they put blue glow around and so it looked off. But the first 2 or 3 shots of Yoda, I thought were dreadful. And even in my main review, I said there's one CGI character that looks terrible. And I was talking about Yoda. And it's really just the first 2 shots. Once it gets a little bit into it and they start talking, Yoda looks a lot better in the closer shots and everything. But there's like this establishing shot of Yoda that I couldn't believe what I was seeing, how bad it was. But they have a great little chat, little fun talk, Yoda having fun with him and having his personality and him being kind of on board with this deconstruction of the Jedi while not wanting to, get rid of the light. I thought that was a good little conversation. So some other people had chimed in on Luke and Rey and all their thoughts on it. Even some people that really liked the movie weren't so crazy about what they did with Luke. So here's some people's thoughts on it.
But the main really big problem is how Luke is handled. I won't spoil it, but I was disappointed with Luke Skywalker in this movie. But other than that, I really liked it and it would be in my top 3 Star Wars movies.
Next up, let's talk about Snoke. I'll say, coming out of this movie, I'm way more interested in this than Snoke than I was before. This movie, I thought, made Snoke one of the more interesting characters that just he's mysterious. Like, where did a guy this powerful come from? And he's like a mastermind, but he's blinded by his own arrogance. And he's so overtly arrogant and so overtly powerful, so overtly clever in his scheming and successful while being stupid at the same time. It just makes for an interesting character. And you can see how a guy that's this clever and this powerful could rise to power, but where did he come from? Why? I want to know more about him. I don't know. Maybe that's one of their books for 2018. They're going to announce it soon. Snoke. And we'll finally get the answers to how did the First Order come around and how did this guy with so much force power, where'd he come from? Is he an Inquisitor, whatever that is? Maybe we'll learn all that. But I was just kind of eating up a lot of the Snoke stuff. So his resistance things, not so much. Finn, definitely no. But whenever it went to Snoke, I was like, I think I like Snoke in this one way, way more. And so then we get to the Return of the Jedi section of it, where it's just very overtly, Luke and Vader go to Palpatine or go to the Emperor. Kylo takes Rey, and Rey's saying the same stuff to Kylo that Luke was saying to Vader. They show up there and has some very obvious, look out the window, your resistance, rebellion is about to be destroyed. So many overt segments straight from Return of the Jedi. And then, even the conclusion in it, the idea that our powerful Emperor type character is destroyed by our Vader type character. That's true here too. Plays out very differently, or it doesn't even play out that differently, because what's playing out is that Snoke had been kind of torturing Rey, and then what happens? Our Vader character Kylo takes him out, and I'm still not sure I fall on that one. I'll say no matter what, it feels a little bit like J.J. Abrams' mystery box, where he likes to put mysterious stuff out there that makes you question. His mystery box on this one felt a little bit like it had a red herring inside of it, that they wanted us to be like, ooh, where's this going? Oh, we've got another Palpatine. Ooh, how's this all going to play out? Wonder where he's from. Surprise! He's not important. It's all about Kylo Ren. He's the supreme leader now. Go, that's cheating. Because it's not like you go, oh, he wasn't important after all, without it just being a red herring. Because you clearly made it, ooh, how'd this guy get power? Wait, who's this mysterious person who has so much dark power that was able to raise up Kylo? You can't just go, he doesn't matter, the story's about Kylo. You can't, you have to give more answers to that, because otherwise we're going, okay, the whole time that Snoke was rising to power, Luke was out there. And Luke was still at the height of his arrogance, according to him, that he's going to have this Jedi Order and everything. So how did he not know? Why did he not track him down? Like, there's questions in here that are really important and that we need answers to. So you can't just kind of write it off. I was frustrated by that. So I don't know if they're going to have a book, and maybe that could make me happy. But the red herring, JJ's mystery box, that's empty. Not so crazy about that. So in all of this, we learn Rey's parents were nobodies. And I've heard some people speculating on the internet, like, oh, Kylo's just lying to her as a way to like kind of trick her, and we're going to find out who her real parents are in the next one. That's pretty stupid. If you think that, I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude on that. I don't think it's a good theory, because the whole premise of this movie, like key premise of this movie, idea that it's building up, is that heroes come from nowhere. And those heroes out of nowhere are how we're going to win. And the Force rises up. When dark rises, the light rises. And so the idea that would be undone, and suddenly Rey's parents do matter, and oh, surprise, it was Luke's daughter all along. It undercuts this movie entirely. They can't go in that direction. It's so unlikely they would do something like that. And just as a reveal that her parents are nobodies, I think that it works great for the movie they told, or for the story they told, for the movie that they set up, the pieces they put in place. I have no issues. I thought that was perfectly fine, because they're establishing that there are these dynasties of power, and that's not a good thing. And they're establishing that the light rises up when it needs to, and that the Force comes, and they establish the pieces all in there just right to be able to make it okay for some of this stuff. So that's kind of my take on it as to why I'm okay with the direction they took all that. That was, I thought, yeah, okay, that. You've made that okay because you've done the work. You didn't just do like, surprise, and we feel cheated by it or feel like this is out of place. No, you made a movie that reveal is the one that makes sense. And they get a big saber battle in there, and it's done nicely. It very much reminded me, I saw a movie, Blade of the Immortals, the samurai movie. I don't know if it's come out in the US yet. I saw it at a film festival a couple months ago. Massive, like these big samurai fights with two swords, and this was shot like these wide angle lenses, and just the character designs of it kind of definitely a samurai vibe and all this. Very cool lightsaber battle, different type of lightsaber battle, and then it used a lot of this the Force to drop things and be able to do things you couldn't do that are specific to lightsabers. Very cool lightsaber sequence. So all in all, Snoke, I really like the character. Not so crazy about the red herring treatment of him. Rey reveal, I thought that was good. Kylo Ren turning evil, and I'm not a big Kylo Ren guy. It's tough to like view a villain as super menacing when he comes off so whiny. Same with Hux. Like they're written in kind of this whiny fashion and just angsty in a way that's not intimidating. So I'm not a big fan, and I know other people have liked him. So here's a take from someone that did.
But my favorite characters in this movie by far is Kylo Ren. I love the layers this guy has to him, and I'm looking forward to see what they do in Episode 9. And I think that's the best part.
From there, let's move on to our third act. So the rebels, resistance, they call them rebels throughout the movie. So I don't know, it felt like they were like abandoning the term resistance, because repeatedly they're called rebels. So they make it to their base. Immediately, First Order shows up with their walkers and their battering ram, laser, Death Star technology deal. So Poe and Finn are like, let's just rush out there to go get them. And then this very awkward scene happens where guys run out like it's the opening battle in Empire Strikes Back, and they like line up inside these deals. And then a guy walks out on the salt, and it turns red under his feet. And in both showings I've seen of it, the person next to me was like, what is going on? Is his feet bleeding? Very awkward the way that played out. Like I guess they were just trying to establish that it was salt, or that's what the ground does. So it was a cool look, but it was like trying to over-explain something that didn't need to be over-explained. And then they set up all these guys on the ground that don't need to be there. So that was pretty weird. So and then they start driving out with their raggedy old deals. Started getting picked out left and right because of fighters. Millennium Falcon shows up. Rey kind of just comes out of nowhere. They go on the previous section were like, she escaped on a Snoke's special ship. So she escapes apparently and magically appears on the Falcon. And there's lines of dialogue in there that explain how she got on there. But the way it plays out in the movie is like, wait, how did she get there and know where they were at and all that? It seemed like there's a couple jumps in there, but she shows up, starts pew-pewing people, taking guys out. They're going along. Poe learns his lesson. He goes, this is a suicide mission. We can't just go out in ships and blow things up. He cancels. Finn goes, I've got to make them pay. And he starts rushing quickly towards it to suicide mission, blow things up. Rose is like, no, you can't do that. We don't want to just fight the things we hate. We must save the things we love. So she crashes into him, almost dies herself. Could have almost killed him. Luckily, the First Order decides to stop shooting at them at this point in time where their ships go down, where they could have been shot and killed. And I guess that's another one where I go, okay, I can see what she was trying to do there, but as soon as she does that, Finn doesn't blow up the ramming thing, and maybe he would have. Bador gets blown off, so everyone's now vulnerable because of what she did, and could have killed herself and could have killed him. Now, because the script wrote that they don't die, but it seems like they're awfully vulnerable just themselves to dying if you just crash into your person you're in love with. And then I guess romance is introduced because she kisses him. So that was weird, like really weird, like very odd the way that plays out. Millennium Falcon flying out the fighters. There's some cool shots in there. They fly through a cave and everything. The visualization of the space battles in these movies in Rogue One and Force Awakens, they've done some great visualizations. Best stuff since Return of the Jedi, easy. So then they're like, what are we going to do? We're going to lose. No one's responded to us. Oh no, our message went out, but nobody cares. And then somebody did care. Luke shows up. It took some time to dye his beard and everything. So that probably tips you off. Something's probably up when he suddenly looks significantly younger, has a haircut, has a nice scene with Leia. Doesn't tell him, hey guys, I'm going to go out there. I'm going to distract them. You guys better get out of here while I distract. It doesn't say that. Doesn't give them any hints as to what's going on, which makes no sense. Like, I know there's another one. There's kind of these times where people don't communicate information so that other people need, which is weird. So Luke goes out, and the first time I watched it, I was thinking they were going to end the movie with, because there's two different shots as Luke is walking out that feel like final shots of movies. I was like, oh, are you about to end the movie right now? Like, I literally thought that was going to be the cliffhanger, and then it wasn't. So Luke walks out, and they started pewing at him, and blows Kylo emotionally compromised. Kill that guy! Blast him! Blast him! Blast him! Blast him! So they shoot everything they can at him. You're like, oh man, did he just die? Is Luke dead? And he walks out, does a little deal, gets a good laugh out of the theater. And at that moment, I'm going, Luke, if they'd had him doing beep, 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 deflecting everything, maybe, but I don't think Luke can just survive that. So Kylo comes on down, let's face off against each other. Around this time, Poe's like, oh, he's delaying. And that, as soon as that he said he's delaying in the movie, I was like, why wouldn't Luke have just said, get out of here? Like, why would he have not said that? Like, that's where I just go, there's things like that in the script that are just frustrating because there's not a good reason why information wasn't communicated. It works for building tension in the movie. It works for building like, oh no, we're running out of time. We better hurry. Well, that's because you just lost 10 minutes while you were, because Luke didn't tell you. If Luke had said, hey, I'm going to walk out there. It's going to take me 5 minutes because they're far away. They're going to shoot at me and they're going to get frustrated. Then hopefully Kylo's going to walk into his ship, fly down. That'll take another 5 minutes. You got a 10-minute head start. And then I'm going to kind of say crap to him and then we'll sword fight for a little bit. That gives you 5 more minutes. You got 15 minutes to get out of here. Find the Millennium Falcon. Doesn't say that. That's weird. So then there's some good dialogue between Kylo and Luke and some, nice payoff in there. And then they kind of have their showdown of sorts, and there's like 2-3 moves. You're like, oh, sweet, look what Luke just spun on the ground. He just did a Matrix Neo under the blade, and that's it. And it's hard to not feel disappointed by that because it's been 35 years. Like, we want to see Luke as super powerful Luke with 21st century CGI technology go all out. And their way of giving us Luke going all out is, what if Luke has grown very much so in his wisdom, and he knows he doesn't need to be there. He knows he needs to be true to what he said, and he knows he knows all this stuff. So his way of doing that is to project himself there and trick Kylo in all this, so he can do what he needs to do to spark the rebellion and distract everyone so they can escape without needing to be there, and he can make the sacrifice. So that feels very good, wise Jedi using a Jedi trick. As a filmmaking thing, as a movie that, if you're just trying to like, let's subvert their expectations. Everybody wants to see Luke just go nuts and take guys out. So let's give him doing what he would do doing that without giving them what they actually want. Okay, you got me. You did that. I still wanted to see Luke with a lightsaber mow down a bunch. I still wanted to see Luke go nuts with a lightsaber. And you didn't give it to me. I gotta hold that against you. I mean, you just can't not show me. That's frustrating that you wouldn't do that. Well crafted in the one sense. And it's just my thought. If in the middle of the movie, instead of having Finn ride on a horse somewhere to give us an action sequence in the middle of it, have something involving Luke and Rey doing something on that planet they're on, or some adventure they go on, something for them. I don't know what it could have been. I don't have an idea for you. I didn't write the script. I'm just throwing ideas out there. But if you give Luke his awesome moment where he pulls out the lightsaber and we get to see the full spectrum of what Luke can do. Then our big finale is, now we see wise Luke. We see Luke that can outthink people. And he can play against our expectations because he's wiser than us and more powerful than all of us, and can have a satisfying conclusion in him sacrificing himself while giving him what he needs as well. But they didn't give us that first one, so I just felt like, why didn't you give it to us? I don't get it. Why didn't we get it? So all in all, that was pretty frustrating. And then we also get kind of in our finale, Rey lifts up some rocks, and that works out surprisingly well. Because you would think lifting rocks wouldn't be too impressive given the Star Wars universe and people know about the Force, but they built the movie in such a way that people haven't seen really what Rey can do. And you stop and think about it, all the Force stuff she did was when no one was around. So we know she can fly and they like her, but you even realize, wait, has she never met Poe before? At the end of the movie, you haven't even thought about that because we're 2 movies in. You'd think everybody's met each other, and you realize, like, she's like, talked once to Leia, and they have so few interactions, and you realize that they think they're about to die because they can't get out, and then they realize that girl I've only met one time, or I've never actually met, I've just heard about, she's right there, and she's powerful, and she just saved us. So it works really well at the end, and then it ends with the spark of the rebellion going out to all these, symbolized by the children from the casino planet. So, something good did come out of the casino planet. And especially watching it the second time, that stuff works pretty well. Because it leaves you with this little mark of like, where's this going? Like this, you see that scene of a little child hearing about the rebellion and getting like, there's hope out there. And we haven't seen that type of into a Star Wars movie. And it's certainly not the one that when you think, what's that image I want for a Star Wars movie? A little kid looking at his decoder ring. That's not what you think of. And it works really well. So all in all, those are kind of my big takes on it. Actually, real quick before I kind of do my final reviews. In my main review, I kind of ended by saying that there's 3 moments in the film where I was like, that's it? Like, really? That's all you gave us? And the 3 of them were Phasma just dying so fast, Snoke dying so fast, and Luke dying without fighting anybody. So 3 people dying that nothing really happened. And I think, they're kind of obvious ones that you could feel like, wait, we didn't ever get Luke actually mowing people down. And I'll leave in the first viewing, the Luke kind of reveal, I was like, oh, that's clever, but I feel cheated by it. It makes way more sense on second viewing for me, or it did. And it felt like it fit the movie really well, but I still felt disappointed that I didn't get what I wanted. Likewise, Snoke and Phasma both felt still cheated by. So overall, a movie I enjoyed quite a bit more the second time. A lot of plot issues I felt were still in there. And if you guys want to refute any of mine, go ahead and tell me down in the comment section. Have some fun with that. So there you go. There's kind of my take on it. If I got to give it a score, at the very end of this video is almost an hour long. Wow. I'm going to go 8 out of 10 on this one. It's a very good movie. I don't think it's a great movie. I think it missed out on, it was so much so trying to subvert our expectations and do something unexpected that it didn't do things that were just easy crowd pleasers, easy great moments that just kind of write themselves. And they went, that's the great moment everybody's expecting. So let's do this other thing instead. Well, sometimes something's obvious because it's obviously the right thing to do. And so I think they really shot themselves in the foot on some of that stuff. Still 8 out of 10. Very good movie. It didn't in any way burn Star Wars, but some people are like, Luke Skywalker's been ruined for me. No, I think they redeemed him in the end. I think they gave a good reason for most of what he was doing. I don't think, lightsaber doing this, I don't think they earned that. But most everything else I think made sense in the context of who he was, and they pay it off at the end. So a lot of good things in there, a lot of still mixed bag things. There's my take on it. How about you? Tell me your thoughts down below in the comment section. And as I mentioned earlier, as you saw, I used a lot of Stardust clips in there. I'm trying to do that in my videos because I always say I don't want to talk about movies. I want to talk about movies with you. And the way I'm trying to do that recently is actually putting your pretty faces up on the screen so I can actually hear your thoughts and interact back and forth with them using the Stardust app. If you're interested in using it, it's totally free. It's no ads. It's not freemium. It's just free. You can get it in the Apple Store and the Android Store. People are telling me you don't call it the Android Store. I don't use Android. I have an app. I have an iPhone. It's right there. And this is a MacBook right here. I got the whole Apple setup. But you can download it totally free, and it's just super simple. You just kind of select the movie you want or TV show by the episode you want, and in the app you just click record. You do a 30-second video of yourself talking about the movie, and then it just posts there. It's so simple. You don't have to have microphones, and you don't have to have webcams or anything like this, or lights. There they are. Hey, if you're wondering what my space looks like, you don't need all the fancy stuff. You just do it right there with your phone. Super duper simple. Post it, and when you post it, tag me. Tag me in it so I can see it and possibly include it. And know the way I'm going to do that is, when I've got a ranking video coming up, as soon as you see the movie that I'm probably about to rank, tell me about it. Tell me your thoughts on those movies, and so I can throw them in there into the years coming up. So whatever your least favorite movies of the year, watch them, rank them, tag me in it. So anyway, there you go. Download the app. It's free. The Apple Android Store. Follow me first. Follow me immediately. They have all these kind of perks and stuff that go well for us. So follow me first. So it does help me if you do that. Use my link down below. Follow me, and then tag me when you do videos that tie in with my future rank videos. What are the main franchises I'm going to rank? Pitch Perfect is coming up very soon. So if you watch Pitch Perfect 3, watch the other ones, throw your rankings in there. Anyway, there you have it. Like I said, this video is a little bit different. My full thoughts, my full analysis of things. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this. And if you're new to my channel, please consider clicking that subscribe button. I do movie reviews, TV reviews, ranking videos, very long spoiler talks that go on much longer than I thought they were because I put a bunch of notes and just talk through everything I can think about the entire movie. But the key thing is I don't want to just talk about movies. I want to talk about movies with you. So join me in the comment section. See you on Stardust, and thank you so much for watching.